What is up, you sexy beasts? Hey, this video is made possible by my good friends and the main supporter of this channel, WODproof. WODproof is your one-stop app for all things CrossFit. Whether you want to track your workouts and film them, whether you want to work on your mobility, find a program for a specific area of your fitness, you can even get rowing coaching on the app. So it really has everything. And with the CrossFit Games open only 35, 40 days away, get the app, start practicing filming your workouts, get mobile, learn how to row, and just join me on there. It's a good thing. So WODproof, thank you for always supporting me. Much love. Remember these things? That takes us back, doesn't it, to the old school days of the channel. I'm gonna bring it back just for today. You know, when I used to do talking head videos with these things on. Today, I want to make a video in my garage, very much like my fellow YouTuber, Mr. Andrew Hiller, does in his garage. And I want to respond to a couple of Hiller's videos. He made a couple of videos over the last few weeks. The first one says, CrossFit will die, CrossFit will die in 3 years is the title, and the thumbnail says, CrossFit is dead. And then a few days later, there's one that says, breaking down the death of CrossFit, and the thumbnail says, proof. And I think they're great videos. I think they're just mistitled. They should really just be titled, why CrossFit is not doing well on YouTube, or how CrossFit can do better on YouTube. Because when I think about CrossFit and whether it's dying, I think about 3 metrics. The first metric is how many CrossFit affiliates are there in the world, and is that number declining or inclining? Is it growing or is it going down? That's probably the most important one, the affiliates. How many people are doing the open? Perhaps might be a good number to look at for participation of the community and whether that's going up or down. And the other number that's really hard to find, in fact I can't find anything on it, would be how many people are doing the CrossFit Level 1. I feel like those 3 metrics are really telling of where the sport, where the business, where the community as a whole is going. Oh, and then the other one we can look at is like the prize money and the brands involved when it comes to the sport of CrossFit, the CrossFit Games. Is the prize money increasing year to year? Are there more brands coming to the space to support athletes, or is that declining? So those are more the metrics that I look at when I think about the health of CrossFit and whether it's dying or whether it's living on. And I certainly don't think about their performance on YouTube as a metric that's important. Although a lot of the points that Andrew makes is valid on how they could grow and do better on YouTube. So before we get into it, a massive thank you to Andrew for making his videos and supplying me with some content to talk about. I'll link both those videos down in the comments below, in the description below, so you can go check those out. And yeah, Andrew, thanks for being my waterfall and feeding me with some content. I think that's one of the analogies that Andrew uses in his video, is that bigger channels or channels like CrossFit should really be the waterfall that feeds us smaller creators in the space. And I think you use the Good channel in the golf space, you use that as an example of a big channel that's kind of feeding content down to the Nate Edwardsons of the world. The issue is the Good channel is not the PGA Tour. So you're comparing the CrossFit Games with the Good channel. The Good channel is a bunch of personalities. I can't claim to have watched any of it, but I believe it's an independently owned channel. It's not like a corporate body, it is individuals. And the thing with YouTube is people love following individuals, characters. They're not too interested in companies or corporates. So when you look at the PGA Tour page, I think it's got like 1.1 million subscribers, where CrossFit Games has like 800,000, not too far off for a sport that is so young compared to a sport like golf that is much older. And even when you look at the views on some of the videos, they're very comparable between the PGA Tour and CrossFit. So I'd probably put those 2 channels together. And then I would ask, why don't we have the likes of a Good channel in the CrossFit space, or who are those? And I would argue that Craig Ritchie perhaps is obviously the leading creator in our space when it comes to subscribers. And who knows, maybe it's just a matter of time before a creator comes into our space with the ability or the talent, maybe an extremely entertaining individual who could grow a channel like the Good channel that could really then feed into some of the smaller channels. But I did want to point out that you can't really compare a corporate page like the CrossFit page with a independently owned kind of personality-based YouTube channel like the Good channel. And I think it's for this exact reason why CrossFit's media was so successful back in the day when Sevan was running it, because they were invested in him as a character. When he was doing the behind the scenes footage with the athletes, We were all wondering, what is he going to ask today? What's he going to do and say to the athletes today? We were invested in him. And so I think if I had to give my 2 cents on what CrossFit can do better, it would be to allocate a character, allocate a person to be the face of the YouTube channel, someone that we can all fall in love with and follow along with, because people just are not interested in following a brand name or a company name. They want to follow a person. And so I think sticking someone in there, get Sevan back, man. That will be a great thing. So I do think individuals like us, we actually have more power and have more traction when it comes to platforms like YouTube. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if YouTube is perhaps not a focus for CrossFit. For argument's sake, let's say that CrossFit is not putting a whole lot of emphasis or focus on YouTube. Can we really look at that number or that metric and say CrossFit's dying if they're not putting effort into that platform? Like if you look at my Facebook page, for example, and you go, oh, there's nothing going on there, Wykie is dying. That's not fair. You know, I'm not really spending much time or effort into Facebook and growing that, but there might be some other metrics in another area that might be more relevant and more accurate when it comes to the growth of that company or that person. So that's my first bit of criticism, or my first bit of feedback on the videos, is that Andrew solely looked at YouTube metrics and why the CrossFit channels aren't performing well. And I just don't feel like that is an accurate metric or a valid metric or a relevant metric for whether CrossFit is dying or not. So let's look at some metrics that I think really indicate the growth of CrossFit currently. And I think this coming year, 2023, when we receive new numbers from CrossFit, and hopefully we do, will be a really good indication of where we are going, because we have actually seen 2 years now of things trending in the right direction when it comes to affiliation and CrossFit participation. And obviously when it comes to the CrossFit Games, the price per has always increased, and we'll talk about that right now. In 2021, CrossFit had 9,400 paying CrossFit affiliates. The next year in 2022, that increased to 10,800. And then at the start of 2023, right now, we're sitting at 11,500. There's an affiliate map on the CrossFit site, and I assume it's accurate. You might argue that it might be outdated, but I've gone ahead and just done the math by each country, just added up all the numbers, and it comes to around 11,500. So that is an increase of 700 affiliates over the last year. That is paying affiliates. I believe CrossFit has about 1,700 non-paying affiliates in the form of affiliates within schools and prisons and places like that. So if you take the paying affiliates of 11,500 and add the 1,700 non-paying affiliates, we're sitting around that 13,200 mark, which is getting closer again to the all-time high, which I believe was around 15,000. So affiliation is trending in the right direction. Let's now look at the open participation. We peaked in 2018 with 416,000 people worldwide taking part. That then dropped to 357,000 the next year. It dropped again to 240,000 in 2020. And then we started to pick up. 2021, we hit 260. And 2022, we hit 295. So 2 years in a row now, we have tracked in the right direction. Really hoping that this year we're going to be over that 300,000 mark, and it'll be 3 years in a row of seeing growth when it comes to the open participation. The last metric I want to look at is the price purse at the CrossFit Games and whether that has increased or decreased. Back in 2014, the price purse was 1.7 million. Last year at the CrossFit Games, the price purse totaled at 2.8 million. Now, granted, that's not a massive jump from 2014 to 2022. What's that, 8 years, and we only went up by 1.1 million. That's not a whole lot. And I would expect that to be higher, and hoping that it will continue to grow. But nevertheless, it has grown year on year, so there has been more money paid out to the athletes at the CrossFit Games. But I think the more significant thing to think about is the sponsors that have come into the space. If I think back to the early days of the CrossFit Games, I can only really think about one brand, and that is Reebok, right? They were kind of the main brand that came on board. When now you think about the brands in the sport, let's just think about shoes alone. You even have shoes like Rad, like Under Armour has now a functional training shoe. They sponsor the likes of James Newbury. You have Tier just going crazy in the sport. Obviously you have the Metcon, you still have the Nano. There are just so many more options and so many more big brands coming into the sport. Think about clothing brands. We have Gymshark sponsoring someone like Noah Olsen. We've got LSKD, we've got Under Armour, like I said, we've got the Nikes, and there's just so many more brands that are interested in our space. We have the likes of Monster, you know, some big brands that just weren't there in the early days that are still pushing into the sport. I mean, there was no such thing as a mobility app or mobility brand back when I started CrossFit. Now there's 5 or 6 different options on the market when it comes to just mobility apps, and those brands are sponsoring athletes and bringing money in. I mean, for goodness sake, the very fact that I'm making this video on this channel and I'm referencing and talking about another creator in our space, to me speaks about the growth of our sport and of the space, because there were no CrossFit creators a few years back. Literally, there were no channels. And so the fact that we now have all these different podcasts and vloggers, and we have a CrossFit ecosystem on YouTube, that alone to me speaks about the growth of our sport and of our space. So I honestly just don't think that you can look at the sport of CrossFit, the brand of CrossFit, the company, and say that it's dying based on all these numbers. Surely you can't do that based on their performance on YouTube, how the YouTube videos are performing. So Andrew, I love you, but I completely disagree with you on this one. So guys, I would love to know what you think about this. Do you think CrossFit's dying? Do you think it's thriving? I don't think it's thriving necessarily. I think it can do a lot better. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things it can improve, but I just know in business that retention is more important than marketing, trying to get new people on board. If you are not looking after the people that you currently have, what's the point in trying to get new people through the door? And so I wouldn't be surprised if CrossFit's main focus currently is retention, looking after the people that they already have, making sure they're giving them their best, which means that their focus is not necessarily on marketing or advertising or getting new people on board. If you look after the affiliates, then the affiliates are healthy and they can look after their kind of people in their neighborhood and get involvement in that way. I think organic growth, organic influence is always going to be more powerful and more real and more lasting than marketing. So although marketing is important and there's a place for it, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that is not a major focus when it comes to CrossFit's manpower and finances. But I don't know, I'm just speculating. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really enjoyed that chat. Once again, Andrew Hiller, I thank you for your content. What does Hiller say? Andrew Hiller out. Wykie Etsebeth out. Oh wait, I've got to get my shirt off for this. Andrew doesn't wear shirts, hold on. Wykie Etsebeth out.